Okay, so I'm recording this in advance. It's been a while. I haven't uploaded anything in a while, but that's just because of school. We'll get used to it eventually. So today, since I think today it's a week till the Teal Mask comes out. Yeah, it's a week. I figured that I would make a video that'll come out the coming Friday to give my overall thoughts on what I would expect the Teal Mask to be before I stream it the Wednesday afterwards. Just in general, considering the fact that the last DLC we've had was Sword and Shields, I'll most likely be comparing it to Sword and Shields a lot. So, with that being said, comparing this to its equivalent in Sword and Shield, that being the Isle of Armor, this looks really sizable, looks really involved, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a person who likes the environment and I guess not the story, but more the atmosphere and characterization in Pokemon games. So there's going to be way more of that, most likely, than in Sword and Shield's case. The only thing I'm not entirely sure about is the general size of this DLC itself, because Sword and Shield's DLCs were basically 2 extra wild areas, and we could base their general size based off of the original wild area. So, the Isle of Armor was around like half or like 3/4 of the original wild area with way more variety, and then the Crown Tundra was about 1.5 times the original wild area, again with more variety. And I think they were both pretty cool. The issue with this one is that because this whole thing is open world, they're basically going to have to be a downgrade in terms of size. I just don't know how much. Let me see if I have a map for this region. So looking at this, I could see I could see both of them being around one province size at most. Like at absolute maximum, they'd be a fourth of the region each. I'd say that'd be more than enough, because you would essentially be adding another half of a region to the game across both of them. If I wanted to be more realistic, I'd say like take South Province for example. For whatever reason, I'm thinking if you split South Province in half, I'm thinking it would be like the left side of it. I don't know. We haven't really gotten to see any maps or anything. That'll probably not happen till either the week of or when we get the DLC. Yeah, that's the only thing I'm really not all that sure about. I think it'll be sizable enough. It's just, how big will it be? A bunch of returning Pokemon. Vulpix is there, so that's just a W for me. Yeah. The legendaries. Ogerpon looks cool. And they'll probably be able to change its masks to different types. And then really the other three, I think I'm still holding on to the poison type part. I'm hoping I'm hoping Pheasantipede is a flying type, but we'll see. I've heard rumblings of like Poison Fairy, which sounds interesting. A major weakness is Steel type, though. That thing would crumble under their weight. It just get folded. Unless it had an ability that nullified it, which it doesn't, because I think they all have Poison Chain. Unless it gets a hidden ability, but you know how they are with these. The story, once again, looks way more interesting than Sword and Shields. Sword and Shields was about a paragraph at most in the Isle of Armor. And the Crown Tundra, but more so the Isle of Armor. So this just being connected to the second DLC as well as Area Zero just makes the story way more involved, so I'm way more interested in it. Like the characters so far, I'm enjoying, and if we're looking at what we've seen of the actual areas, I do like how dense it is. Because one of those things that I think is part of the reason why people had issues with Base Scarlet and Violet and a lot of Sword and Shield, other than the DLC, because really wasn't much negative other than everything that they said about the original game anyway. But Sword and Shield's original wild area was open, but there wasn't a lot there. Part of that had everything to do with where they decided to put it, and also deciding to have only one at the same time. I think they screwed themselves by doing both, by both only having one and having it be smack dab in the center of the region. If they had done a bunch of slightly smaller ones in different areas of the map, I think it would have been a lot better for the game as like just in general. Because there was really no way to. The only thing that I think they actually could have feasibly added to the general landscape without the region being full of extremes smack dab in the middle for no reason and screwing over the Britain, like the Britain aspects of it, would be caves. And that's about it for that. So yeah, this type of stuff looks really cool. They add a lot of dense stuff to it, so it's a lot more forgiving. So when things like the texture stretching happen, it's not as noticeable because you're not staring at the same texture on the floor for most of the province. No, I didn't care. Like, I noticed it, but I wasn't that big of a deal for me. But you know, it is what it is. It looks pretty cool. A lot. Oh, obviously there's going to be more hairstyles. We know that. Apparently in the previews they had more clothes. That was like the only thing I was really iffy about with the character customization part. I didn't mind. I said this already in another video. I didn't mind the school uniforms. And we knew that they were going to add new clothes. We just didn't know how many. I honestly, when I looked at it, I thought that's probably it, the green thing we have on. I don't know what it is, and apparently there's way more than that, which is cool. Expected more hairstyles, and honestly should have expected more clothes. It's just we hadn't seen them, and usually they show them off. So it's whatever. We get more. That's good for me. I can make more characters that look different, as well as adding more of the returning Pokemon to them. Oh, that's another thing. Specifically, Shaman and the Sinnoh starters are coming to the Teal Mask DLC, which I thought was interesting. I think that really sells like the Japanese, more specifically Sinnoh influence. They mentioned a mountain, and I think that skull-looking thing is the mountain, but they haven't really said anything about the skull. I mean, the areas look big, and that area just looks cool on its own. You know, it looks like it's going to be really important. And they brought it up in the description for the region, so I thought that as much. But seeing the actual mountain itself, and then some shots that look like they take place in it, it looks very important, so I'm excited to see that. Is there anything else? Oh yeah. So, progression. We know that we're going to be looking for folklore storyboards in the region. They'll most likely have something to do with that general area and legends about that general area in the region. I have no idea how that's going to work because they do the picture thing that they did with all the badges, and that's usually associated with a type of challenge like the Team Star bases or the Titan Pokemon or the gym leaders. So that'll probably be a rival fight, or a fight with one of the Loyal 3, or maybe even a fight with Ogerpon. Or maybe they'll just do more challenges in the vein of gym challenges. We just don't know. A lot of stuff that the preview events had earlier this week. Can't say a lot. Timeless Woods, nothing much else to say. Looks like a version of the Pokefinder, and there will be a Pokemon that, at the end of it. Not entirely sure what that Pokemon will be. Part of me wants to say a Hisuian Pokemon, but we'll just have to wait and see for that. And then the only other thing that I think they got to mention about this DLC was like Ogre ousting felt like it was made for multiplayer, specifically the higher difficulties, because it does have multiple difficulties. It has easy, normal, and hard. And so I'm excited for that. I think that'll be pretty awesome to do, especially with someone else. And it also gives you the ability to change your base stats, so that's cool because of the mochi that it gives you. They also said some stuff about it feeling like rural Japan compared to the actual Japanese regions that we've had a lot, which felt they were still Japan, but it was just more like what's urban Japan. This feels more like rural Japan, where it feels a lot more country. So I'm pretty interested in that because that's not a thing that they really do in Pokemon. They have like a whole region, and so they just kind of shove everything, almost everything together. So like rural towns aren't given the type of space and scaling necessary to really differentiate them from nor other towns and cities, especially in earlier Pokemon where towns and cities really were the same size. It was just in the number of buildings in them. But now you can really feel the difference when they do stuff like they only have one central town with houses spread out, and the rest is just like roads and just wildlife compared to actual cities with paving and everything. So yeah, that looks that feels pretty awesome to get that difference between what we would normally get. Yeah, overall, I'm pretty excited. Looks like a step up from what we got in Sword and Shield. I'd hope so, given that this whole game is a step up from Sword and Shield, barring the customization of clothes. And yeah, assuming that nothing comes out that would invalidate this video or needed to be tacked onto this video, this will be uploaded on the 8th, and I will see you in a stream on the 12th, and finishing a Pokemon Violet file I've had, and then finally we will be streaming the Teal Mask on the 13th, whenever it decides to release. I'm hoping it's at midnight, but it could very well be noon, in which case I won't be seeing y'all till like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So yeah, that's it.